so many things tie in, and honestly, that's why there's 7 different things in there. It's like there is no one thing. It's like, what's that one thing that is the secret to your success, right? It's like there's no one thing. There's a million things, and it's how we cobble them together and we put them together. Well, our health is no different. They're always like, oh, I just have to do that. You know, it's like, just have to lose weight. Okay, that's cool. Well, 20 years ago, you take fen-phen and you have a heart attack later, but you were skinny, you know, or it's like you can take all kinds of pain drugs. I'm not in pain. Doesn't mean you're healthy.
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I got a real treat. As always, Dr. Chris Perron. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Good morning, Brad.
Now, is that Perron or Perron?
Oh, oui. Well, here in the States, we call it Perron, but back in France, yeah, it'd be Perron.
Ah, Perron. So, folks, if you guys don't know who he is, Dr. Chris Perron. By the way, if you want to follow him on social media, at Dr. Chris Perron, Perron, you will find that he's an expert at, well, he's a doctor, number one, but number two, the 7 habits for healthy living. The 7 habits for healthy living. We have a bunch of listeners. I call them the Bomb Squad. You know, a lot of them are entrepreneurs, you know, busting their ass, trying to succeed in the world, or have already, but, you know, they're hardworking. What are some of the stress factors that they could do to like live longer?
You know, that's a great audience for this message, because I find those are most of my clients. I'm right outside of DC, and so it's a fairly affluent area. A lot of go-getters, go. Time is the big factor. And yet with all the seemingly options as far as medical and healthcare available, and oftentimes money to, you know, get whatever they need or want, still lacking in what the end result is for a lot of these folks. And what I've come to the conclusion of is that a lot of times we just make things too damn hard, just make it too complicated. And it's like, what's the latest thing in tech? You know, what's the latest? And I got a big problem, so I need a big solution. And the reality is, if you get back to basics, but you have an actual plan on how to implement them, they work. They just work. To touch on just real quick, I know we'll get into it, but 5 of the 7 habits for healthy living are just having to do with food, sleep, exercise, mindset, and hydrating. I mean, none of that's rocket science, right? But
it really isn't. But let's walk through the 7. So what's the first one?
First one's chiropractic. And that's the kind of doctor I am. Been a chiropractor for 26 years now. Tens of thousands of patients, and love what I do. And chiropractic for me is where it all starts, because if your spine and your skeleton isn't set up right, it's structure and function. So if you got a bad structure, it's not going to work right. That knee's not going to work. The hip's not going to work. And most importantly, your nervous system's going to get messed up if you got vertebra in the wrong place and your neck on crooked, literally. So by making sure that all of that is set, at least you create a foundation and a base from your body to now go forth and do what you want to do in the world.
What percentage of people do you think are out of alignment?
All of us. At some point, various degrees.
So if I went in and laid on the table right now, I'd probably be out of alignment.
Probably.
Even with no aches, no pains.
That's an awesome point. So I equate it to going to the dentist in that way, right? It's and everybody has a different philosophy on how they want to do, and my door's open to whatever philosophy they have, because that's their deal. But would you want to wait until you have a cavity or need a root canal to finally get it fixed, or go in that cleaning, that preventive maintenance, you know, that the dentists are real good at? Car care, you know, it's like the light and the engine's smoking, and now I'm going to get it fixed. And that's kind of what pain is in the broad spectrum of health. When it gets into back pain, neck pain is the most common things we deal with. Pain's the last thing to show up. It's not the first thing to show up.
What's the first thing?
Well, it's the first symptom to show up, but it's not
I was
when
gonna say,
the problem
like,
begins.
Yeah,
it's not when the problem begins. It's our bodies are actually pretty good at tucking a lot of stuff under the carpet. So by the time we have pain, unless it's obviously a trauma that just happened, it's usually we've accumulated a pile of stuff, and now it's like, well, I just woke up and I just had it, you know, or I just bent down to pick up that piece of paper and my back went out. Well, clearly it wasn't getting out of bed or picking up that piece of paper. Something had to have led to that point. And so pain threshold is a real legitimate thing. It's not just a term, or how tough can I be to put up with stuff. It's a physiological thing in our brain where our brain gets nociceptors, for the big fancy word, but it's basically our body's stress chemical saying something's wrong, something's wrong. And there's a little cup up in your brain, and it puts the little drops in the cup, and not until cup runneth over does it become symptomatic. So the ideal time is actually that space between when you're feeling fine, and we just want to make sure that when we check you out, we can tell if you are, and we can say, hey, you know what? You are good, Brad. In fact, it's been a month since we saw you and I didn't have much to do. Why don't we check you out in like 2 months this time? Or why don't we check you out in 3 months? So when the chiropractor has a good analysis to be able to tell tangibly what your needs are, then we can definitely customize it to each person's needs.
So you've been doing this a minute, because the book's called The Simple Plan. If anybody wants the book, go to, I would assume, Amazon, wherever books are sold. Yep. Look for The Simple Plan. On the back, you'll see old Dr. Oz left a little testimonial, or what these are called.
I had a nice little interview with him. Got to have that opportunity in Philly a year or so ago.
Your mother gave you one.
She is the motivation for that book. That book wouldn't have happened if it weren't for my mom. And that's the opening for the whole story. But you can hit on the next one if you want it. You're looking at it. And Danny.
So again, after my heart attack, my son Chris created a plan for me that appeared simple. That's where the simple plan is. There was initially efforts to change my habits. 2 years later, I've been eating great, living a full life, maintaining weight, and I plan to follow a simple plan forever, and I'm excited to share it with you. So this book basically walks through the 7 steps, or the 7 habits for healthy living. The first one is chiropractic. What does that mean to someone like me? Like, I don't have pain. Should I be going to a chiropractor anyway?
Yes.
Okay, so I go to a chiropractor, walk in and say, what?
I feel fine. My goal is to stay that way. Check me out and see if there's any room for improvement.
But if there's nothing painful, how do they know to look?
Well, that gets into the individual chiropractor. Now, I subscribe to a technique called Activator Methods, and the thing I love about it is its analysis is very objective. So when you come in with feelings or without feelings, those are just clues as to where I might find problems. But my analysis has nothing to do with your feelings. We take care of babies, for instance. That's a good example, right? So a little newborn or infant, they can't tell me what's wrong with them. They can't tell mom and dad either when they're just screaming. So you got to have an analysis that is kind of not dependent upon the patient's feelings. In fact, to me, it's a red flag if all the chiropractor's asking is, where do you feel it? And then only kind of go in tunnel vision on where your feelings are, because there's much more. That's like playing whack-a-mole with your health as opposed to being proactive about it.
So sometimes I'll move a certain way or bend over to grab something, and I'll feel like a slight tinge, like my back's going to go out, like, but I stop and I'm like, and it goes away, thankfully. It's never went out, but like it feels like that sometimes. What is happening when that happens?
I refer to that as a warning light.
Is that a pinched nerve, or what is it?
The nerves are the communicator. So is there a nerve getting pinched in there somewhere? Yeah, probably. But if you perceive it, it's because the nerve from that area of your body shot a little signal up to your brain and told you about it, right?
What told me what, though?
Told you something's not right.
It was, what do you do?
So that's what my job is.
Because I go work out every day. Like, it never does go out, but sometimes it goes zing, and I'm like,
So back to,
do I need to exercise in the back? Do I need to freaking go to a chiropractor and let them adjust? Is it an adjustment that's going to solve that?
It's the chiropractor should be able to analyze you and determine if you need an adjustment. What you're describing to me, the odds are about 99.9. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Well, seeing as how we have a whole studio full of chiropractors, right after this show, I'm going to go over there and say, hey, everybody, look at me.
I'll check you out.
See what they do. Yeah, because I mean, if it's just a matter of crack, okay, you're good.
Correct.
Well, dude, everyone should be doing that.
I agree.
I just don't think a lot of people know about it. When I used to hear, chiropractors, because I knew a couple of them, they'd say, they're doctors, and I'd always make fun of them and be like, well, you're not a real doctor. But I found out later, they learn everything an actual doctor, a medical doctor, learns except for prescriptions, right? And the prescriptions is what's harming the nation. The prescriptions are what we don't want.
Yeah, the credit hours and the schooling are basically the exact parallel to med school. The only difference is how do we treat the same problems, right? So we're checking out the same anatomy, same physiology, and then it just comes down to, okay, what are we going to do about it? It's like you said, is it prescriptions? Is it surgery? Or in the chiropractor's case, it's adjustments is a primary tool. And then the purpose of the book and the other habits are actually the other things that tie into making it a more well-rounded, what else do you do for your health other than just come and lay on my table? Because I know that that's important. Like I said, it's number one for a reason, but it's definitely not the whole enchilada. It's like just coming and laying down and then doing whatever the heck you want to when you're not there. Well, no, that's not going to be a recipe for health necessarily either. So it's making sure people have the knowledge and the game plan. And like you touched on, exercise being a very important part of that.
So what's number 2?
So number 2 is getting your gut in check.
Microbiome?
Microbiome. In fact, the company I use mostly for a program that I outline in there, it's called Microbiome Labs. And they have a gut restoration program. It's just 90 days. Super simple in the grand scheme of things, not very expensive either. And it's been proven to basically kind of reboot the gut. And I like to use the analogy of like a lawn as far as the gut goes. So you picture a lawn that's got bare patches and weeds growing and all kinds of crap. And that's what a leaky gut. A lot of people have heard that term nowadays, or just a bad gut, is we got good bacteria, bad bacteria. So the good bacteria is
you can move
your
that,
grass.
by the way. You can make it comfortable, like
cool.
Any way you want.
All right, cool.
You want it like, yeah, there you go.
So the good bacteria is like the actual grass, the lawn, the parts you want. The bad bacteria would be the weeds. And then the weeds go there and the grass gets worn out. Now you got bare patches and there's the leaks. So when somebody, to the extent somebody's gut's beaten up, well, that's allowing toxic crap to basically sift into your system and then go throughout, including into your brain.
How do you know if you have a leaky gut?
If we live in the U.S. at this point in time, you got one. Because the things you can just go to what messes up a gut. So here's the short list of what messes up a gut. And then we'll get into the symptoms that just make it that much more apparent. But somebody's ever had antibiotics.
Well, before you go through those, my question is if all the doctors in the world know what you just said, why is it allowed to happen? Why is the food supply in the United States, I would say, tainted? And it sounds like intentionally.
I would not disagree with you.
I've talked to a lot of doctors and none of them disagree with me. So my question is why is it allowed? Like, why doesn't somebody stop this shit?
Well, then I say I live right near DC.
Yeah.
Well, have you interacted with, well, I'll give you an example actually, unfortunately, as to why. I go down to Capitol Hill in DC to lobby every year. There's a chiropractic day where we have some things. Most of the bills we're actually pushing for veterans, access to chiropractic as well as active duty military. My dad was career Army. I attempted to go to the Naval Academy, so I've got a lot of military in my heart. And so I care a lot about that. And we go down, and I've been going about 15 years now. And every once in a while, a new congressperson will get elected in, right? So they're the freshmen. The timing of when we go is about a month after they get sworn in. To a T, I don't care what party they're in. That representative, when they're only a few weeks in, we're meeting with them. They're as attentive as hell. They got their notebooks out. They actually seem like they give a crap. A year later, you're with the page and good luck. And it's just swallowed.
Do you know why I think that is? I think that's because they get turned.
Sure. I agree with that one.
They get introduced to the machine and they realize there's no messing with that machine. They might as well take advantage of that machine. And that's what I think the politicians are doing. How can you explain all the politicians becoming millionaires with such small salaries?
I think it's pretty obvious, all the side perks that come with the...
But see, again, so how is this allowed? The food tainting, the freaking backroom deals. Like, when are we going to all wake up and say, stop messing with their food? Like, that's illegal. Get rid of all the politicians and put in some brand new people.
You know what I think would be a good approach is for people, and I'm not doing this in a self-serving way, but as you make me think, which is cool because that's the point, right? if they would do the simple crap that I'm outlining there in the simple plan, which is really just taking back control over your health and not being dependent on other people. I mean, the 2 we touched on so far, you need something external. The other 5, all on you, simple, cheap, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of knowledge.
But still, food is a part of it, no?
Food is in there. Absolutely.
All right, so let's go through the rest of them. What's number 2?
So number 2 is the gut, right?
Gut,
there's the gut restoration program.
So get your program, or where can someone get that test? ChrisPerron.com?
Yes, sir.
Chris Perron.
ChrisPerron.com.
I always say Perron.
It works.
ChrisPerron.com. I can order that test there?
You can get access to the program outlined on the website as well as in the book, and it's basically just ordering the supplements in 90 days and you're done. I have a link on there where you can get them discounted. The
microbiome gut restoration is just taking certain supplements?
It is.
I'll be damned. I thought you had to shit in a cup or something.
You know, they offer that. And my attitude is, well, if you want to spend a few $100 to crap in a cup to find out what I can guarantee you, because if you've ever had extended term stress, again, taking an antibiotic in your life, eating fast food, eating junk food, all that, it's like there's room for improvement in the gut.
Yeah, we've all done
it. Invest 90 days and literally just a few $100 in supplements, it's like, why not?
And what does it do? Does it make you feel better, shit better, be more regular?
All the above is supposed to be the end result, and the folks I've run through it, that's
better
been
skin,
the norm.
Better,
Well, everything goes through the gut. Gut's nickname as of late has gotten to be the second brain, because it's grown an appreciation on how big an effect it has on your immune system, and it's not just coming from the top down, but from the bottom up.
Some people believe it's the first brain. Some people do,
and it's fresh to where I don't deny that. That could very well be what we evolved to find out.
Isn't that crazy?
So many things in science. That's why don't ever settle with what is. Always keep thinking.
So I would imagine in that, once you figure out your gut, step 3 would be eat the right foods.
You got it. That is
that
number
what
3.
it is?
It is. Yep.
Oh, that's simple.
Sure.
But what are the right foods?
What does that mean? Yeah, exactly.
That's where we go right back to it, because it seems like everything's poison nowadays.
You got it.
You look at ingredients from anything. They're like, well, buy grass-fed beef. Well, now I hear there's going to be putting the mRNA in the beef. Like, how do we know what the hell's going on?
Is there any no? I guess we'll never know.
But I mean, like, I have friends that went to Italy, lactose intolerant, but over there they can eat it just fine.
Yep. Bread too.
Bread, everything. Like, in other words, like dry here. And then I hear there's things that are outlawed, banned in other countries that America allows.
Most countries.
So it's, again, like, other countries are like smart enough to say, hey, you can't put that shit in our food. But America says, go ahead. It's okay here. Is that because of lobbying?
Well, it's been a couple years, but not that long. And last check, the top 23 lobbies out of 25 in DC have to do with medical or healthcare. So you can do the math. And obviously, I'm sure you've heard the cycle of being, well, if we got food that is crappy, well, then that cycles them over to take a pill and the pill, and then just goes round and round and round. There's a hell of a lot more money to make off of sick people than healthy people. There's the bottom line, right? Unfortunately.
So do you have a recommended diet for the step 3?
I do. Well, you hit on Italy, and I love Italy too. I even talk about a lovely meal I had there a couple years ago, and the Mediterranean diet. But I kind of go in a little more detail, because it's been shown to be the best diet, by powers that be, whatever.
As far as health goes.
As far as health goes,
I'll be damned.
But the staples of it are, what are they eating? A lot of people think, bottomless pasta bowl at Olive Garden. Well, no, that's not Mediterranean diet. It's not how they eat in Italy either. It's a lot of vegetables, but fresh. That's the difference over there, right? Also fish, meat. It's really just not processed. They actually make their own freaking food. Imagine that. Tastes better too. And that's what I'm a big proponent of, is that you got to figure out how to actually make food for yourself. And I'm putting out cooking videos. I was fortunate enough that my mom cooked all the time growing up, and I like it. I like to eat. And so the best part, if you know how to cook a little bit, is you can make what the hell you want when you want. And that's a big perk. But not everybody has these, we're all raised different. We all got different paths, and a lot of people balk at, oh, I don't know how to cook. And maybe they don't at the moment, but if they can learn some really basic things. And again, a lot of my patients and staff, even who have just done a few little tips, are like, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought. And wow, that does taste pretty good. So my take on food is a couple staple things. Is start making food, because you got to have quality control, as you're touching on, right? It's all about quality control. Even if you go to a nice restaurant, the quality might be better, but they got to make a profit, and I don't blame them for it. And so certain ingredients just aren't going to be, as good as what you can do for yourself. And extra virgin olive oil. But to go for the healthy part, organic, whenever you can. Yes, on vegetables, on fruit especially. Chicken if you can, but a lot of places like Whole Foods is obviously a brand everybody knows in the store, people know. The reason they're popping up is because the demand is there. And even if you can't get organic, well, then at least most of them have raised without hormones and antibiotics, stamped on it. Can we believe everything the government says? No, I don't, but it's the best we got. Grass-fed is what I suggest going for on the beef. And it's just a relativity. Are you going to get perfect? Nope. But the less crap, the less toxins that you put in your body, obviously the less your body has to deal with. And that's going to do you a whole lot better for having done that.
What about Greek yogurt? Is that good for the probiotics in the gut?
I eat it some. I'm not big on a lot of dairy, and dairy's a huge one, organic or nothing. I mean, like you're touching on going to Italy and stuff. It's like the crap they put in cows. I mean, cows are twice the size of what they were 15 years ago. Well, they don't just evolve that way.
Why do they call it virgin olive oil, and what's extra of that?
That's an excellent question. And I've looked it up, and then I forgot to look it up because it's like, he's going to ask me that question. It's the best I know, so I'm not going to pretend to know what I don't know off the top of my head, is that it's really just clean, like straight from being picked and everything. And they haven't processed a lot of crap out.
And that's why they call it virgin?
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been screwed with.
Perfect.
And then if it's extra virgin,
no pimento inside.
That's right. All right. So far we have visit a chiro, get your gut right, eat clean, eat better, eat smart. And again, you're correct. These are very simple, but not so simple. What's the next one?
Actually, then one last piece on the food is I do subscribe to intermittent fasting. I like to call it intermittent eating because we like to look at the positive twist because you get to eat. And obviously it's kind of become all the rage lately and everything.
Well, everybody intermittent fasts when they go to sleep, don't they?
We do. So it's eating on purpose, right? So it is picking a time and it is picking a schedule, because one of the themes with being healthy and what our body's like is routine. When it knows it's coming and it has downtime, whether it's eating regularly, working out regularly, how much water you take in, all that kind of stuff. It's like the more consistent it is and your body's like, okay, I can count on that, the less scramble it is to try to find what it needs in the moment. And it's always, on edge looking for what it needs. And so with the intermittent fasting, it's really just acknowledging that our gut needs a little downtime too. As our gut does need to repair itself because it's been working, when we put stuff in. Yeah.
Well, someone told me, I think he was a doctor. I've seen studies, let's say, because you never remember kind of where you hear shit. That's why it's all, I don't know. But they said fasting for 7 days will reduce your possibility of getting cancer by 70%.
I've heard things of that nature. Let's put it that way.
And that makes sense though, because you're turning over cells every single day. Yep. So if the foods and the cell turnover is, the food's poisoning, like you never stop poisoning the cells.
Plus you're also starving out the bad guys that might be in there, like budding seedlings that could be already present. That's the other part of that equation.
Yeah. So you freaking start fasting for 7 days and then boom, it's all turned over by then.
And you go back to McDonald's.
Then you don't go back to McDonald's. Then you start eating raw vegan meals. Why vegan?
I always
tell people I eat vegans.
Well, I'm not vegan, and I don't want to be vegan. There's a product in there that I subscribe to because I think it is a quality product. It's called Vega, and yes, it stands for vegan. And a smoothie recipe I put in there. That's kind of a staple as well from the food standpoint. Just a scoop of that green stuff. It's got protein in it. You read the label. It's cauliflower, broccoli, blah, blah, blah. You know, so you're getting 12, 15 servings of fruits and vegetables in a glass.
Wow.
Throw in a banana for a little texture, a little orange juice and some ice cubes, and spin it up, and you're done with lunch in 30 seconds. And that's the lunch I've had for years. And between making sure that, to me, that's my vitamins, right? I don't take supplements and all that kind of thing. I don't want to be dependent on, I run into patients where they're taking or doctors taking 50 different supplements for this thing and that thing and all that. Depends on their headspace around it, but a lot of them, it's almost like an anxiety around oh, I need this and I need this. And it's like their life becomes consumed. And what are they taking in to do this versus isn't life going out and doing the stuff that being healthy is supposed to support? And it's just kind of a backwards sort of approach to it all. And I just like to go out and play and have fun. And I don't want to have to think about this crap. So for me, it's put a good program in place, hit rewind and reset and do it again and again and again, and not have to focus on your health all time, all day, all this kind of stuff. So you can go out and do the stuff you really want to do.
What's the next one?
The next one after food is about sleep. So rest.
Okay, sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
I've heard.
I can't seem to, I'm going to get blackout curtains next to see if that helps, but I go to bed at 11 or 12. I wake up at 5 or 6 every day, and I'm wide awake.
Sure.
So when I open my eyes, boom, I'm up, I'm ready, I'm rocking and rolling. I'm not groggy. I'm not, oh, I wish I could sleep more. Matter of fact, I sometimes wake up and be like, damn, I want to sleep more. Why? Because I want to get 8 hours. That's what they say is great. And so I try to close my eyes, and for 10 minutes, I'm just sitting there wide awake with my eyes closed. So I get up, and it's I can't figure out the sleep thing.
It doesn't sound like you're too far off, and it sounds like you do a few good things for yourself to where your body might not need the total 8. The big study, big study they did a few years back, it was about longevity and lifespan, and they did it relative to sleep. And they had pretty concrete showing that between 7 and 9 hours in that window, if you're on either end of that, less than 7, more than 9 on a regular basis, your lifespan is like a cliff heading off either side of that graph. And so the 7 to 9 window, you described hitting 6.5, 6 hours and 45 minutes. To me, close enough, within a few minutes. It's the people that are on the 4 and the 5, and you hear all the self-help success gurus, and it's you don't need sleep, get up and go. It's that's a recipe for bad things.
You need sleep.
You need sleep. That's when our body fixes itself. You deprive your body of being able to repair everything it needs to repair on a regular basis, then you just start piling up stuff that didn't get repaired, and it's you're gonna pay the piper at some point.
And then I would assume after sleep, it's hydration.
It's in there. We can hit it. It's the last one, but
what's the next one?
In the order, it's really kind of irrelevant as far as importance. The next one I have in there is exercise.
Of course, I got that one down.
Well, and as it says, simple plan, and you look like you work out a little different than the average person, which is cool.
What do you mean?
Huh?
What do you mean?
All right, what do you do? You got a little muscle on you.
Yeah, I just lift weights, do a little cardio.
So how many people do you think go in and actually lift weights? Not many.
Isn't that working out?
No, I'm saying it's good. No, it's a good thing.
But I mean, that's working out.
It is working out.
Yeah, I don't think a bunch of people work out, but I would bet 20, 30% of the nation would, no?
Ideally. But I try to tap into the folks that aren't working out, and how do I just bring them a little part way? Because most of the time it's just their vision of what does working out mean? Well, I don't want to go to a gym. I don't want to get big, women and stuff like that. And it's no. Let's just knock it down several notches. And I say, pick out 2 cardio things. I don't care what they are. It can be riding a bike, taking a walk, something to get your heart rate up, possibly get a little sweat on, God forbid. And every day, shoot for a half an hour. These are minimums, right? Just the baseline foundation. And I want 2 things because I want you to pick an indoor thing and an outdoor thing. So weather's never an excuse.
Why indoor and outdoor?
So that weather's never an issue. So if the weather's crappy, You've already pre-selected something that you don't mind doing that's inside.
See, when you say don't mind doing, that's the part I would say. Don't worry about what you mind doing or not. Like, pick 2 things that you're going to do. Because if you mind doing them, I mind working out. I definitely mind legs. I don't like any of those things. People say, well, you got to enjoy it. Listen, I don't enjoy working out.
That's bullshit. Exactly. I'm not big into lying to ourselves.
But I do it because I believe if you don't stay mobile and active, you're going to lose your mobility and the ability to be active. Like, you see those old men that are walking around all slow. Like, when did they get like that? It wasn't like they woke up one day and, oh, I'm a certain age, I'm going to slow down. No, it's because they slowed down. It's because they stopped moving. They stopped being active. They stopped being mobile. And then, because sometimes when I sit on a couch for too long, because I've been known to get into a binge watching episode, and you get up and it's like, ugh, like it's almost like that's what happens with life. We're not staying mobile.
100%. You know, one of the neatest things that's stood out to me, and I get a kind of a cool perspective in being able to take care of a lot of people, and for over years, from newborns to 100-year-olds, literally. And when people hit mid 50s, 60, they literally take one of 2 trajectories. I found very few people in the mid-range. And it's either they buy into the whole idea of, oh, I'm getting older, and therefore this is what I should or should not be doing, which I do not subscribe to and think's a load of crap, or they actually just continue living their life because they're still alive. And they both get the results that they deserve, if you think about it that way. So having that headspace of, what's the purpose of it, right? So like you just said, it's like, I don't like working out most of the time. If I do, sometimes, sure. But every day, no. Sometimes I got to kick myself in the butt and go, hey, come on, let's do a little bit. It's because of what I get from it. You know, it's the result. That's what I want.
Have you ever seen with your own eyes a really old fat person?
Really old. Yeah, like 80. I consider that somewhat old.
That's old.
Yeah. Not many.
But you've seen an 80-year-old fat person?
Sure. In my office, which is really shocking.
Well, that's rare though, because rare. I got to tell you, I've never seen one personally. I've never seen a really old fat person. Now, I've seen old people that are kind of saggy and out of shape because they're old.
Not obese.
I'm talking about the big round people.
You probably we haven't seen a 60-year-old that big.
What's that tell you?
Choices shape your chances.
They don't last that long.
No, they do not.
They don't last that long. So if you're 50, you better get your ass up off the couch and start becoming a little more active, so you remain active and you lose some weight and you remain alive. Because if you ask me, obesity is a killer.
Well, and obesity is an end point result too.
Yeah, and people can say, "Well, Brad, you got a little love handle." I'm not talking about chunky. I'm talking about obese. I'm talking about round. Like, you know, you could lift your belly up, you know, off the bottom. Like, I can't see the button on your jeans because your belly's over it. Huge.
Absolutely. It's all toxin. That's what fat is. Fat is stored excess toxins that our body couldn't process as quickly as we were shoving into our body.
What about inflammation?
Inflammation is a very real but very generalized term. Every single thing wrong in our body has inflammation as a part of it. That's why it's the target. It's like anti-inflammatories, CBD oil, all these sorts of things. So targeting the inflammation is not necessarily going after the cause, right? So you got a fire going. So the inflammation is the flame. Well, you're also shutting off the fuel line that's pouring, you know, over there on the side. And that's actually one of the biggest problems that I find and believe in kind of Western medicine. Everything's about symptoms. It's about how you're feeling. Kind of like you described before. It's like, I feel fine. Does that mean somebody's fine? No. Number one sign of a heart attack, which means the first thing you see is somebody is dead.
You know the first sign of AIDS?
What's that?
A pounding sensation in your butt.
Well, I answered that correctly.
So the first sign of a heart attack is what?
It's death. That's on average, the number one first sign that somebody has had a heart attack is that they're dead. And that's a sign is something observable by somebody else versus what you feel. That's a symptom.
Yeah. You know, the other day I was sleeping, or I wasn't sleeping. I was getting ready to go to bed, and it felt like I had to go and just keep like getting some extra breath. Like it was almost like, is my blood not being oxygenated? What is happening there?
Well, that specifically is certainly your body saying we need more oxygen in us. Absolutely.
Yeah, but what can you do except breathe?
Well, you made a good choice. That's why we're here today. There's so many things tie in, and honestly, that's why there's 7 different things in there. It's like there is no one thing. Like everybody wants, like I know you're into business things and all that, as I am, and everybody is when it comes down to it. It's like, what's that one thing that is the secret to your success, right? It's like there's no one thing. There's a million things, and it's how we cobble them together and we put them together. Well, our health is no different. I always say, oh, I just have to do that. You know, it's like just have to lose weight. Okay, that's cool. Well, 20 years ago, you take fen and you have a heart attack later, but you were skinny, you know, or it's like you can take all kinds of pain drugs. I'm not in pain. Doesn't mean you're healthy. So getting into,
you can even be in shape and doesn't mean you're healthy.
Absolutely not. One of the worst cases actually I've ever seen in somebody coming in. This guy was off the set of Baywatch, and he was looking like he was a Secret Service agent. I mean, ripped, blonde, sandy hair, like the whole bit. I did the test I do on him. It was like, I was shocked. I was like, I just figured, you know, I just need a little upkeep and so on. So he transitioned from the field to the desk, and they figured his back was getting stiff because he's not used to sitting around all the time. I checked him out. His back was more locked up than I still have seen the scan I do that basically measures how locked up your muscles are. He scored the highest score of anybody I've ever seen in my life. It was crazy.
What was it from?
Because he was in such amazing shape from working out so much, he raised the bar. In fact, here's a tip for you. It's like the more somebody works out and does a lot of these other, like might eat well and hydrate and all that kind of stuff, the more tolerant your muscles become with putting up with your joints being twisted. And so by the time somebody who is quote unquote, it's like a backhanded compliment. By the time you hit that threshold of, okay, I can't put up with it anymore, your hole is often way deeper than that couch potato that felt the signal way sooner because their muscles can't put up with jack because their muscles are a mess too. So why symptoms alone are a terrible guide unto itself. Piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle.
Yeah. So, I mean, you coach people through a lot of this stuff as well, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Is that how you spend your day?
I spend my day, yes, and I still am in the clinic adjusting people. So my primary job is definitely a chiropractor. My mom had a heart attack a couple years ago. That's where this all came from. This is the plan I made for her. And it actually just worked so ridiculously well. Shocked me, shocked her doctors. She went from 175 to 132 in 4 months. And it wasn't from exercise because she had a widowmaker heart attack, which is like the real deal. And her workout for the first few months was like 1 lap around her cul-de-sac, sit down on the bench and take a breather. So it was just eating better was the primary thing on her end and different things, and many people since, and all similar results just coming from where they're starting in their individual paths, because these are just commonalities that if you do these, you're going to raise that waterline of your overall health to a certain point. And then whatever your specifics are, I don't mean you, but say it's diabetes, say it's high blood pressure, say it's cholesterol and all that kind of stuff. It's like you just do healthy things. Most of those things you caused them, you created them yourself. You can uncreate them if you did it the right, go the other direction too, in the positive direction, if you have a plan that's plausible. And my big thing with her, where it started, is I needed a plan to where she wasn't going to be dependent on me. They live in Hilton Head, I live in DC. And it's just not practical for somebody to need somebody all the time and for it to work. Then the other one, that was reasonable requests to where they'd actually be interested in doing it long term. And we're a couple years later and she's holding steady and went on a 2-week European cruise a couple weeks ago and
Nice.
a month in Hawaii and kind of just living fully. It's awesome.
Good. So visit a chiropractor, get your gut in order, eat better, exercise, sleep. 6th one is
7 to 9 hours a night.
What's the sixth one?
Oh, the sixth one is hydration.
Hydration. Drink a lot of water.
And I subscribe to the half your body weight in ounces.
Half your body weight in ounces. So if I'm 220, I need 110 ounces.
You got it.
That's a gallon.
And my suggestion.
So if I'm 300, I need 2 gallons.
You got it. And my recommendation on how to do that, because all these things like eat right, exercise, it's not rocket science. A lot of people, in fact, one of the biggest compliments I've gotten is they call it an implementation guide because it's a how to accomplish that. So the hydration is an easy one to explain in that I say you got one of two choices. If you're out and about working, get a sport bottle, measure it. Most of them are like 20 ounces or so. So if you're shooting for 110, like you said, you're going to run through, the bottle 5 times. Have a glass of water with lunch or something like that and check the box. But you have to be able to quantify it because that's the only way you know that you're actually getting it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
My folks hanging home, they're retired. They got a his and hers pitcher. It's a half gallon each. Fill it up in the morning. Whatever's in there at lunchtime, finish it off. Fill it up at lunch. Whatever's in there at dinner time, finish it off. And that's how they know because they just have this easy, rinse and repeat on a daily basis.
Yeah, I try to do that, but then I'm pissing all day. It's like freaking, I hate it. It's like, oh.
How long did you test it for?
I probably did it for a week or 2.
Go longer. Because one of the things I describe is it's kind of like taking, we're in the desert. So if you take a bunch of water and you dump it on the ground outside once or a handful of times, what happens to it? It runs off, right? And that's us pissing all the time. But if you continue to give that water on a regular basis, a little bit, suddenly the ground starts to be able to absorb it better. So that staying in the bathroom all day long actually typically doesn't last.
Oh, good.
You just have to get past that hump.
Well, again, it's one of the things where it doesn't matter what I like. I'm just going to get it done. What's the 7th one?
And the 7th one I call self-love, but it's the headspace. And to me, that's where it all starts and ends.
Like meditation or what?
Meditation is one of the, it's like whatever floats your boat, but you got to pick something and usually a few somethings that you do every day. Meditation, I think, is fantastic.
Breath work.
I do that as part of meditation.
Cold plunging.
Say it again.
Cold plunge.
I mean, you ain't gonna do that every day.
People do.
I've done it. I mean, that's fine if there's access.
Plunge.
It is called the simple plan, by the way. So cold plunge is not necessarily unless you live
simple.
in Alaska.
What are you talking about? You just get a cold plunge. Like they're sending me one right now. Plunge. That's the tub I'm getting.
I know, but you got to fill it up. You got to do all these things.
No, you don't. You fill it up. It stays whatever
it stays
degree.
cold?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
I mean, they cost $5-6 grand.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one more thing people got to get.
But I know, but from what I hear, dude, cold plunging's miraculous.
Well, all those Russians can't be wrong. But it's
I've
heard it too.
I'm going to start doing it when it gets here.
Sweet.
But I hear the vagus nerve releases some sort of serotonin or some sort of dopamine or something good.
Yeah.
And you just have a unbelievable day. Energy like you've never had. Like everything's just unbelievable. Your heart rate lowers. Everything's good from cold plunging, from what I hear.
Well, it's a stimulus, right? It's I don't know a lot about it in detail. I've done a polar plunge for charity a couple times. That's a hell of an experience when they're chainsawing a hole in the ice so you can jump into it.
Well, that shit's scary because what if you like go in and the current brings you down?
Well, it was a lake, and they had the fire department had their rescue divers in there. My buddy actually spent the night in the hospital because he had heart palpitations the rest of the day and stuff like that. So
because it was so damn cold,
it's a shock to the system. Yeah, especially if you're jumping in with 2 feet. But yeah, I mean, I have a journaling. What do you stuff in your head? You're watching, news all day and stuffing things in there and what's wrong in the world that you have some control, but not all control. You want to be aware, but you don't want to be overcome and overwhelmed with it all the time. And so you got to be reading positive books. You got to be, possibly watching a program. Listen to podcasts like yours, honestly, where you're dropping knowledge of all different kinds. And I've listened to several and it's cool. It's like, learn stuff. We only think consciously with about 3% of our brain, right? On average. So that means the majority of our actions, thoughts, decisions are on autopilot. And that autopilot is going to be drawn towards the database and filing cabinets that we've shoved in our brain over our lifetime. So we got to be real careful with what we put in there. And we can be very proactive with saying, hey, let me purposely shove a lot of good things in there so that that's my perspective that's going to come out when I'm not in total control. And I think it makes a huge difference in just how we approach everything in life.
100%. Mindset's everything.
You got it.
Well, I appreciate you coming in. I know it was kind of last minute decision to jump on the show before you flew out, but I appreciate you doing so. How can the Bomb Squad help you?
How they help me? Well, in all sincerity, it's not about helping me. I would like them to help themselves. I think the way they can help themselves is grab the book. Very minimal investment, especially for the ROI you're probably going to get out of it if you even do little bits. And if you like it, then just like I've done, I'm a big proponent of if you figure out something that works, then you should be sharing it with everybody else, because that's what we're all here for, is to share our knowledge. I could have easily said, hey, you know what? My mom's good. My family's good. Carry on with my way. I'd be fine. But the reason this became a book is very sincerely my inner desire to want to share, and a feeling of obligation of sharing what the hell I know, because I feel very fortunate for the things that I've been exposed to. And I just want to share that with everybody else so they can get the same benefit.
Well, there you have it, folks. Go get the book. Go to chrisperron.com, Perron. Follow him on Instagram at Dr. Chris Perron. And until next time, keep it real. If you just stop trying to sell somebody and start trying to help somebody, your vibration changes. And the whole synergy works better just from the get-go, because your vibration is giving off positive, I'm here to help you. And if I can't help you, I don't want to sell you anything. So I think that would be the biggest misconception. People think I'm trying to sell them things.